Welcome back, everyone. Well, tonight is the big night. President Obama expected to announce the formal end of U.S. combat operations in Iraq. How will this change our mission there, and is Iraq stable enough to stand alone on its own? Joining me now, White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs. Good morning to you, Mr. Gibbs.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So the big question today is, why now? Why not wait until Iraq is a bit more stable? Why tonight?
Well, look, I think Iraq is very stable right now. We have, despite the fact that there's still violence in Iraq, and there certainly will continue to be, as General Ray Odierno told the president in the Situation Room a few weeks ago, it's among the lowest in measurable violence that we've seen in the 7.5 years that American troops have been in Iraq. There's no doubt that we're still in the midst of government formation, but the Iraqi security forces provided the security for that election. And I think what's important today is that as we transition out of our combat role to assisting the Iraqis, the future and the history of Iraq will be written by and be responsible. The Iraqis will be responsible for writing that.
Mm-hmm. Will President Obama recognize the success of the surge put in place by President Bush tonight?
Well, look, there's no doubt that first and foremost that the men and women in our uniform and the sacrifices that I think we are all in awe of, the president will laud today, both at Fort Bliss when he stops there as well as in his speech. I don't think there's any doubt, as candidate Obama said, that adding 20,000 men and women into Iraq would improve the security situation. I think along with a series of other things.
You know, excuse me, back in 2007 he said he was against the surge.
No, he said he was against the surge. He said there was no doubt that adding 20,000 men and women would improve the security situation. But as we know, our efforts in Iraq weren't going to be done simply militarily, Gretchen. There had to be a political accommodation. We had sectarian violence between Sunni, Shia, and Kurd. And quite frankly, the Sunni and the Shia and the Kurd had to decide that they were going to live and work together for an Iraq that met their future needs and not fight each other. I think that's why we're at this moment, and that's what the president.
So that will be the way in which the president will address his flip-flop on the issue tonight.
Gretchen, I'm happy to spend a lot of time looking back at decisions 4 years ago or even 7.5 years ago. I think what's important while you guys play political games is the president to laud our men and women and to mark the end of our combat mission.
No political games here. I think a lot of people in the American public are wanting to know what the president will say and how he'll rectify what he said back in 2007. Let me ask you this. Word on the street has been that the president will call President Bush today. What will he say when he calls President Bush?
Well, I think the president will talk about the situation in Iraq, thank the president for his service, for his love of country, and I think they'll have a nice, private, quiet conversation about what's going on in the world. Will
President Obama credit President Bush tonight in his speech for the success in Iraq?
Again, Gretchen, I think you've asked me this question twice, and I've given you an answer.
No, this is the first time I've asked you the question. Will President Obama thank President Bush tonight during his speech for the success of the surge?
No, that's actually now the fourth time you've asked me that question.
Well, you haven't answered it. Will he credit President Bush tonight for the success of the surge?
That's number 5. Let me give you the same answer I gave you the first time.
In baseball, you get 3 strikes and you're out. You've had 5 chances to answer the question. Will he credit President Bush tonight?
Gretchen, I don't know whether this is you actually interviewing me or just a tape of you looping the same question over and over again. There is no doubt, and the president will mention, that adding men and women into Iraq improved the security situation. There's no doubt about that. But I think we would all recognize, Gretchen, if you'll take a moment to understand, that we wouldn't be where we are in Iraq without the political accommodation. We wouldn't be in Iraq where we are in Iraq today without the Sunni awakening, where Sunni tribes decided, instead of fighting with al-Qaeda, that they were going to fight against al-Qaeda. There were a whole series of factors that went into marking where we are today. I'd have one question for you, Gretchen. Do you support the fact that the president's pulling out more than 90,000 troops today and ending our combat mission there?
This is not an interview of Gibbs Carlson. This is an interview with the spokesperson of President Obama on one of the most important issues facing the American public today.
That's my one question for you, and I can even ask it 5 more times.
Well, that would be very cute, I guess. Let's go back to why tonight, because you have Michael O'Hanlon, who's from the Brookings Institute, saying that this is not the right time for a victory lap. If I were him, speaking to the president, I would wait until they had a government and do it with Iraqis together. How would you respond to Mr. O'Hanlon on that?
Well, look, Gretchen, I've said this before. This is not a victory lap. You're not going to see any mission accomplished banners that'll be unfurled, and you won't hear the president say the words mission accomplished. We understand that violence will still continue. We understand we still have troops there. But it's important to transition our role out of Iraq and put the Iraqis in control and make sure that the Iraqis are responsible for the decisions that have to govern that country. That's also a reason why we're marking this transition today is we put pressure on the Iraqis to come up with decisions and accommodations that they could live with themselves rather than fighting each other, because we told them we weren't going to be there forever and that at a certain point we were going to transition out. It's their responsibility. The vice president's over there now. I don't think there's any doubt that we will very soon have a government in place. The last election, it took 6 months to form a government. This election was certified in June, and I think we're making progress toward that end. And
undoubtedly, your boss, the president, will thank the troops tonight during his speech as well.
You know, the president will start today, Gretchen, at Fort Bliss, which saw some of the heaviest combat fighting at the very beginning of this war. They had troops that have served there continuously. Some have served 2, 3, and 4 times. You know, Gretchen, whether you agree that we should have gone or not, whether you agree on the certain tactics, I think we can all agree that the men and women of our uniform, the men and women in uniform, and those that provide our safety and security and sacrifice, and the families that they have that sacrifice so much, are a group of people that we are forever indebted to.
All right, very well said. Robert Gibbs, spokesperson to the president. We will all watch tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Coming up on the show.